Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me today, I have two brothers who are men of God. They are fathers. They are very active in the church. They are fond of pouring into young people and just men who are determined to live a life that is pleasing to God and make their mark on the world in a way that is going to be memorable, special, and empowering and encouraging to others. They've taken out time from their busy schedules to be with us today. And so without any further delay, let me introduce to you Mr. Ron McCrary and Mr. Robert Triggs. Brothers, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you for having us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Our audience is going to be in store for a treat because I know you have some nuggets of wisdom to drop on them and sharing of your stories. So without any further delay, before we get rolling with that, I do want to give each of you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourselves, where you're from, what you do, anything else that you'd like to share with the audience. So I'll start with you, Ron. Kind of tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, with that introduction, I was like, "Who's he talking about?" So I didn't know you were talking about us. I thought you had somebody else. But hey, I'm Ron McCrary. I am a 27-year married man with two daughters who I don't deserve, and currently a member of Northeast Bible Church. Proud of that. And the fellowship that we get with the members there. So I am definitely glad to be on the show here. This is a great thing that you're doing, and great having us on the show. Is that enough information?
Hey, we're gonna dig. So I mean,
Oh,
if that's your initial intro, that's cool with me. We
we'll
just want to
be.
we just giving them a taste right now, but we getting ready to dig deep. We getting ready to give them the full serving in just a moment. So that'll work for starters. I'm gonna jump to you, Mr. Brother Triggs. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, sir. My name is Robert Triggs. I am from originally born and raised in Houston, Texas. Relocated to Dallas here several years ago. I am a husband of a beautiful wife. I have three children that keep me busy. One baby girl who makes my world just makes my world so awesome. I'm a member of Northeast Bible Church, and I've had the pleasure in serving in ministry alongside Ron and others for several years now, and so excited about that.
Awesome, awesome. And again, you brothers are more than valuable, beyond words, beyond measure, in the works that you do, both inside and outside the church and within your respective families. So this was not a difficult decision at all to have you on the show and just again be able to share just a few nuggets about your lives and perhaps in a way to be able to, of course, uplift and encourage somebody else's in the process. So let's get right into it. So first off, what I would like to know from each of you, and I'm going to start with you, Ron, if you would kind of reflect back on childhood and just kind of tell us, what was it like for you growing up? Any fond memories that jump out to you, as well as if there was any specific challenges that may have come along the way in your growing up. Please share that if you'd like to do so. So kind of tell us, what was that like for you?
Yeah. So my childhood, I usually refer to my childhood upbringing as me being a mutt. And so mutts kind of travel around and they move around a little bit, don't really have a home for any long period of time. So what I mean by that is that early on in my childhood, we moved around a lot. My father he drove trucks for companies, across the country, and many times, things would change where he might get laid off or whatever. So we moved around quite a bit up until my sixth grade year. So we lived in various places. We lived in places where they had not seen an African American or black person ever besides Starsky and Hutch on TV. Anybody, if any of your viewers remember that show, but that was an experience. And then we lived in places where we had a diverse makeup of ethnic groups, everything from um, those who were Aryan to those who were Hispanic, Black, and just in a neighborhood that was very interesting. We used to play, we used to have fun going out on the porch on Saturdays. Our entertainment was to watch the pimp. who would bring his prostitutes over across the street, and he would take care of his business with them. As far as better have my money type thing, right? So we would it was like clockwork. So that was a neighborhood, one of the neighborhoods we lived in Oklahoma. So we moved from Kansas to Oklahoma to Nebraska, back to Oklahoma, and then finally we ended up here where we were pretty stable. As far as any experiences that I would remember, I'm kind of I'm one of those guys where I think your viewers probably can identify. Some of them can identify with when you're in adversity as a young person. You sometimes you don't even know it because it is what it
Mhm.
is. And so I remember many times having to play. We thought it was play, but be silent because there were bill collectors at the door. True. I remember where we would have to run around with candles because the lights were shut off and things like that. I remember the fun games we thought they were like fun, where we would get the green stamp book and lick and fill up the green stamps and see who could do it the fastest. So, but we didn't. That's all we knew. So when you talk about adversity and challenges that some people go through, I didn't know any different. We see that on the back end when we grow older and say, man, we were struggling pretty hard there. Where my mom was hardly ever home many times because she did really seriously have three jobs. Where she would go and she would come home for about 20 minutes, cook, and then leave. So those are some of the experiences, but I don't look at them as really tough in that regard. As far as, hey, I had a tough childhood because that's all we knew. And then we look back and see that, man, the Lord He really took care of us in the midst of that. So those were some of my experiences and thoughts growing up as a mutt.
And I like how you use the terminology about the mud and just explaining that, because that makes total sense about, like you said, the moving around back and forth, and then just like you said, the diverse of neighborhoods. From some where there was nobody to look like you versus more inner city settings where you're literally seeing some things like pimps and prostitutes, right? Like it was just a normal clockwork type of thing. And I think probably what was the biggest thing that you spoke to, that I think a lot of us from that time who might have grown up in similar settings can remember, is that when you had that close knit presence of family, even in moments where money was tight and things like that, it was one of those experiences where you said, like, we might have been poor, but we didn't know we were poor,
Hmm.
because of just how we managed to just take what was supposed to be a quote unquote bad situation and we made the best of it. So it didn't come off like as if it was problematic. We didn't sit there and weep and moan about, oh, woe is me for this or that. We made do with what we had and made the most of it. And that is attributive to what the culture was like back then. And probably we need more of that today. And we just don't have that like we used to. But back then, like you said, we were able to withstand what would have otherwise been defined as the adversity moments. But we didn't classify it as that. It was like, hey, let's make a game out of this. Let's just, make do with what we have. Let's adapt.
Yeah.
Let's adjust. So we were
Yeah.
good at that. And that allowed us to be survivalist even as we went into adulthood. We were able to, even when money was tight, okay, no need to panic. We'll be all right. We're going to make do. I know this doesn't feel like it's a lot before us, but we're going to make that thing stretch. So, yeah, you're taking us back, in terms of that memory lane. And of course, you're telling on all of our ages in the process. So without
Well,
using numbers.
well, Joe, you said. Let me just add one thing. You said something that I thought it's important to mention is that a lot of credit goes to my parents. Specifically my mother, who had to hold it down because she didn't take that attitude to where you said it's just like, hey, we're going to make something good out of a bad situation. So her attitude was that she took the hit, and we really didn't know how bad these things were. So she absorbed that. So I give a lot of credit to my mother and father for their response and how they reacted to some of those real tight situations. And so I think that's something that we can all take away from, especially as a parent. I have to take a hit. It looks different, but I do understand that, for the betterment of those who are in my sphere of influence, starting with my family and so forth. Sometimes I have to absorb the impact for their betterment.
And that's interesting that you pointed that out too, because like you said, the same. The concept is still the same. It just looks different today. So I totally relate to that. I've taken a many a hit that neither my daughter nor even my wife may not even realize that I'm taking the hit because things are still functioning like normal to them. Whereas I'm saying no, everything's not normal right now, but I'm taking the hit, like you said, for your betterment because it's my way of, as the leader of the home, to protect the family, to make sure we still going to be okay. That's just what we do, and a lot of that again comes from how we were brought up. We learned how to take those hits, how to be survivors in tight moments. So good stuff there. Same question for you, Robert. Take us back, growing up. What was that like for you? Fond memories? Any specific challenges that come to mind that you had to deal with? Please share with us what that was like for you.
Listen, I don't know what the opposite of a mutt is, but I am that. um, I lived in the same home neighborhood since the sixth grade. My mother still lives in that same home with the same phone number. She's had I've had one phone number since middle school, and she still has the number. So, product of a single parent household. Um, had my grandmother live with us for quite some time. I am a latchkey kid. Came home after school, got a bowl of cereal, jumped in front of the television, watched television for a little bit until it was time to get chores done and homework done before mom came home. During those times when mama came home, you had to have it together. So you would, do your entertainment up front and then hurry up and do, your chores 30 minutes before you walk in the door, or else you were going to get wrath from her. Um, my mom is an educator. She was 40 plus years. She's my shero. She is my everything. Um, she she worked diligently serving students while also preparing me, spiritually and pushing me academically, and all the practical things like taking me to work until I got my own car. So in my neighborhood, it was normal for there to be a single mother without a father in the home. So it was abnormal for a father to be present. Like you guys mentioned earlier, we didn't know that though, because we were all playing outside, playing football. We played sports with the seasons. When it was football season, we played football, baseball, all of that. So all of these were fond memories. And just like you guys, we didn't know that there was a struggle because everybody was doing just about the same thing. Um, but in terms of adversity, I would just say uh, being having limited contact with my father, not having him in the home, I think, looking back would be an adversity. God did a great job of surrounding me with other men that would pour and develop me. However, it's something very special about that the biological dad and the role that he plays. And so as I've gotten older, I've learned the significance of that and tried to turn that into a plus in parenting my own children and being present and as a motivator to kind of step it up each generation. Though I don't condemn my father, I stand on his shoulders. I do see some spots where he can grow and where even I can grow as a father. So fond memories, great challenges, but all in all, I really appreciate my family life and what Christ did through it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I love what you said because even your story was different than Ron's. I was still able to identify things from that. Having grown up single parent home, my grandmother also lived in the home as well. So if mom wasn't around, that was my backup babysitter, if you will. But it didn't even feel like a babysitter because my grandmother was also my running buddy. She was there when I came home from school, and she's the one who I would play games with when my mom was at work. I mean, my grandmother was the first person to introduce me to, playing blackjack, and we would sit there and have a jar of pennies that we would bet with, while we were playing, and we would watch. I grew up in Chicago, so at that time, the Cubs would play in the afternoon because they didn't have lights at Wrigley Field yet, so we'd be watching the game on TV, and like you said, get that snack in, get the chores done, you know, before mom got home. And in later years, that was really relevant because when we did have a chance to move into another home, you know, I remember having to do that very routine, and then even going as
Mhm.
far as you having to get dinner started. Like, you know, before
Mhm.
I get home, make sure you have, you know, 5 potatoes peeled for me. Make sure you got this going. So when I get in, I can pick up from there, hurry and get the meal done. And it was just that was just kind of your normal routine. So even as you were sharing your story, I'm just like playing that all in my head. That was the routine, you know, back then. And you know, and that was, you know, that was for us, it was good life. We didn't see adversity in that moment, whereas our kids today, they don't understand that because we've been blessed on the one end to have our respective careers, and as a result of those careers and the financial gains that we've had from that, we've been able to raise our families in neighborhoods that are, you know, would fall into the whole suburban life type setting. And so our kids don't really know what a true struggle is. For them, true struggle is, you know, the internet not working, you know, or, you know, the refrigerator and the pantry that's full of food, there's nothing to eat, you know, you know, that kind of stuff, you know. So, you know, and they don't have even the memories or the experiences of even playing outside, you know,
Mm.
like we did.
Mhm.
They don't know
Mhm.
anything about that. You know, half of them
Mhm.
don't even know how to ride a bike, you know,
Mhm.
things of that nature. So, I mean, you can go on and on with that, but those experiences are what make us, and they help to define us as we go through that journey of life, which is why I like to start at this point, you know, just kind of share, you know, how this thing builds up and where it leads us to, and how it actually impacts ultimately, you know, the way that God will, you know, guide and direct us, whatever path that is for us, because we all have our respective paths. Sometimes there'll be some similarities. Sometimes we'll be in totally different stratospheres, but he's always in the scene working behind. And for all three of us, one of the beautiful things has been is that we got exposed to God at an early age. You know, we didn't
Mhm.
maybe understand everything, but we were at least getting that exposure early on, and it just matured itself and developed itself as we moved on through life.
Mhm.
So, taking this journey a little bit further, there are times, of course, as we go through our life and we deal with the various challenges and whatnot, there are going to be some things that are going to hit us a little bit harder. You know, and sometimes it can get to the point where we might, you know, question, you know, can I get through that particular situation? But what I'm curious about with the two of you, again, being men of faith who have matured significantly over the years in your walk with Christ, one of the benefits of being in relationship with God is that the more intimate you become, the more close in relationship you become, He reveals things to you. It's almost like kind of the comparison I think I can best put out is like being in an AP class where the pace is
Mhm.
a little bit faster, where I can share some stuff with you because you're getting it a little bit, you know, quicker. I can share some things with you. And so I
Mhm.
think one of those things that in particular that comes to mind is revelation. And so what I'm curious to hear from each of you is, how does God, in His own way with you in your relationship with Him, how does He reveal to you about things to be, I guess, on the watch for? You know, even if He doesn't specifically spell it out like this danger is imminent or anything like that. I believe that when you get in close relationship with God, He kind of gives you some warning signs. He kind of gives you some heads up that helps you to
Mhm.
begin to get prepared for what is to come. So that way, when it does hit, you're not caught off guard, but you're ready to stand tall in that fight. So I'm going to start with you, Ron. What does that revelation that I'm speaking of look like for you?
Well, first, that's a great question and something to reflect on. I think for me is really looking at the Word of God first to see those challenging or struggles that all the saints in the Word have gone through, and look at that. And what I do is tell myself is that what I've signed up in this walk with the Most High God is I didn't sign up for yellow brick roads. You know, when I look at those examples, so it's an expectation knowing that there are going to be some challenges, there are going to be some valleys, as well as the mountaintop experiences. But just looking at the examples that we see biblically, those examples and challenges become testimonies.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at that, that's what that says to me is that, hey, Ron, you need to be expecting that there's going to be something that's going to try, but it's going to be something that's going to, it may be a chastisement, because I know the Lord loves, he chastises those he loves. So I know that there's going to be some things. So that's the expectation I've had for quite a long time, is knowing that I'm going to experience some things that the Lord may allow, and it may be for my testimony. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I would say, even to the viewers, is that we should be expecting some heat, if you will, in our walk. That we should be expecting some times where we're going to have to stand, and it's going to cost us something. We should be expecting that there's going to be some times where you're doing everything right, and it just feels nothing's going right.
Mm-hmm.
So those are things where I look on my life where I've gone through various challenges, but I think it's the way we approach it, and everyone has a different way that they approach it. For me, it's knowing that, hey, all things are going to work together for good for those who
Mm-hmm.
love the Lord and are called according to His purpose. So when I think of that Romans 8, I'm thinking that it's going to work out for me. I'm just going through, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel. So it's just, for me, it's more of a mindset approach to it. It's not, hey, the sky's falling, oh, woe is me type thing, because I know that God's got me. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think that's an important point that you made, that people don't necessarily have to expect some mystical, magical moment where there's a thunderous roar of a voice in the air that comes down and says, "Ron, danger is on the path." It's just like you said, it's a mindset type of thing. Same way with when things are good that's coming down. Like, I'm God has His way of talking to me to let me know, Joe, you are on the brink of something
Hmm.
good. Get ready. I'm
Hmm.
revealing things. I'm exposing you to people. I'm exposing you to platforms and circumstances and situations. That's sort of his, for me, like when I think about revelation for the good that's coming, that's kind of the heads up. And then, like you said, just to what we just talked about, Ron, the same thing happens in reverse. Sometimes God signals to us, people that we encounter, things that we hear, there's a level of discernment that arises in us that triggers, it to be in a lighthearted way. It's almost like our spider senses are tingling, that lets us know,
Hmm.
okay, did you hear
Hmm.
that? Did you hear what they just said? Did you see
Hmm.
what you just saw?
Hmm.
I purposely allowed you to hear that. I purposely allowed you to see that to prepare you for, you don't know necessarily what, but to put you on watch, that stay prayed up, stay armored up, because when this does happen, it's going to happen. I want you to be ready. I don't want you to be thrown off guard with it. Stay ready. And as you spoke to, Ron, being in your word and just accepting the fact that that this is just a part of the walk. It's not going to just be the yellow brick road moment, where I can just skip along. And that's kind of one of the misconceptions of even giving our lives to Christ, is that we think we give our lives to Christ and then we've reached the finish line. It's all
Hmm.
over. No, it gets harder now.
Yep.
you know, and for
Yep.
some people, they may even question, well, why get saved then if it's going to be harder?
Yep.
Well, because even though it may get harder, you don't have to fight that fight alone. That's the difference. And you know
Yep.
that who you're partnering up with, his record is undefeated. So I'm
Yep.
good. I don't have to worry. Even if it looks as crazy as it may seem, even though the world stat says that this is a losing record, God's stat says otherwise. So I can rest in that. I can count it all joy, because
Hmm.
I don't have to worry that this is going to be a downfall for me because of who is on my team. So that's good stuff that you mentioned, Ron. Same question for you, Robert. How does God reveal to you? What does that revelation process look like for you as you are dealing with those challenging and difficult moments that may cross your path, those moments of adversity?
Yeah, great question. To build upon what Ron was saying, I found that um, as I'm getting up, spending time with the Lord on most days, and getting like nuggets. I'll get little nuggets for the day. And what I'll find is sometimes he'll give me a super good, I mean, just an excellent nugget from the word, and I'll be excited about it for the day, and I'll forget about application. And he will remind me about that moment I've had with him when I get in the circumstance so I can apply it to the situation. And let me give you an example. I was going through some challenging times and I was reading through the book of through Genesis, and I was reading through the life of Joseph. and got to that 50th chapter where he says, what you meant for evil, God meant it for good, and all of that. And I just thought, man, shake my haters off. God, you got me. God, you. But sometimes God will show you where you're not Joseph, but you're the older brother. You
Hmm.
are one of the other brothers, and he'll bring to your attention. So you say, "Oh, I'm the one that
Mm.
did somebody else bad." So that nugget was preparing me not to be Joseph, but for me to show love towards a Joseph in my life. And so the application is everything. God usually stores up that word in us so that when he's ready to direct us, and like you said, Joseph, the same thing in a good way. Sometimes he'll give you an excellent word, you not knowing that a blessing is coming your way because you're being obedient. But man, the word of God, that's the central, the word of God and the spirit of God. That's the central way he gets the word message to me.
Absolutely, that's good stuff. That's good stuff, man. And you're speaking the truth. I mean, both of you, the way that you just have to approach that mindset, that intentionality that has to go in our pursuit of God, and just leaning in Him and resting in Him and understanding that He's going to give us these little nuggets here and there, and all that He gives us when we speak about the blessings. That those blessings aren't always for us, but it is to
Hmm.
prepare us to be a blessing to
Hmm.
whomever He's going to have cross our path. And that's why I love the way you use that example about, is, am I getting ready to be Joseph, or am I getting ready to be one of the older brothers?
Hmm.
Which role am I playing? And depending upon
Hmm.
how God is guiding you, we may have to play those various roles and prepare ourselves accordingly. So when we encounter that individual, we encounter that moment, we'll know how to properly, in a godly way, how to handle it. So
Yeah, Joseph, let
that's
me say this
good stuff.
right there. And it's funny how you can be both of those characters at different times
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
different seasons. So just how universal the word is, and how it can flex to different circumstances, that's critical.
Absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree with that. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. So as we move along in this journey of challenges and valley experiences and ups and downs and highs and lows, I am curious to know, when you find yourself faced, and you kind of already kind of spoke a little bit about this, both of you did, but when you find yourself, when, if today is one of those days where adversity is knocking on the door, there's something that's on your plate today that you got to deal with. I'm curious to know, what is the process that you like to go through when that moment of challenge, when that moment of adversity, when it's been revealed to you, okay, here's something else for you to deal with. How do you like to walk yourself through that, so that, again, you can stay focused, you can stay level headed, and not allow it to consume you or overwhelm you to the point where you get stuck, but instead you respond in a way that is appropriate and godlike, so that you can get through that thing, again, without it, knocking you completely off your feet and keeping you stuck in one spot. So I'm gonna jump back to you, Ron. What's your process for that?
You might be mad at me because this is not going to take but like 15 seconds. Pray,
Mm-hmm.
pray, pray. So when those situations come up, man, the first thing is to talk to the Most High God. The first thing, and that's really, it's that basic and that simple for me. Uh, to get something from Him, I think there requires some communication.
Mm-hmm.
To hear His voice, it requires that we practice prayer so that we can increase that faith muscle, so that we can be able to hear His voice, and He wants us to talk to Him. So it's just as simple as that for me. Without going into anything else, I think that is the first line of defense, and the first line of being able to get through any challenge or any circumstance like that.
So let me ask you this, just as a follow up, just to be played devil's advocate, if you will. If we got somebody that's listening and just saying, well, I've gone through this difficult moment, whether it's, maybe I lost a loved one, or a marriage has come to an end, and I prayed on that, but I'm still not feeling, I'm not feeling healed. I'm not feeling, like I'm getting through this thing. What would you say to that person who's, I guess, questioning whether or not prayer is even good enough?
Yeah, I think the challenge is going to be how God is responding to my prayer,
Mm-hmm.
or that person's prayer. Is he saying wait? he saying not now, or is he going to answer that prayer now? And so I think being patient and waiting on him to respond in his time. Let's look at the word. Where we that hall of fame of faith that we talk about. Those saints who prayed and didn't even see their prayer answered many times. We look at Moses; he didn't enter into the promised land, and the prom and he led the folks out of Egypt, right? And didn't
Mm-hmm.
experience that. So there's a lot of examples. We look. I think that's Hebrews 11. We look at you know prayers going up. But I think knowing that the Most High God, He's able, and this faith walk in prayer, it may not be about your specific circumstance. So to answer
Mm-hmm.
your question, that's what I've gotten out of many times where I'm praying for something, and maybe with the family situation or a loved one, and it ends up being down the road. When I look back in hindsight, it's like, oh, it wasn't about that. Yeah, it hurt. Yeah, I didn't like what happened there, but it was about God revealing Himself and His will through the situation. And
Gotcha.
so, yeah, it's not. It doesn't taste good. Probably that answer, but it is all about how God wants to respond. He's sovereign.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, there was nothing wrong with your answer. It's just trying to put context to it
I
because
like
again, everybody's at different phases in their walk, and I think as believers, we're really easily led to just say, well, just pray about it, just pray to the
Mhm.
Lord, and He'll make a way. But for that person who's really hurting and going through some stuff, maybe is either not used to praying or perhaps they've tried that in their mind and then it didn't play out. Then sometimes they question, well, what's the value in all this prayer stuff that we keep talking about? I hear what you're saying, but
Yeah.
when is it going to work for me? So I like the way you
All
gave
right.
that explanation about sometimes it's about waiting that thing out. Sometimes it's about maybe you understanding, I guess getting clarity as to what you're needing to be praying for. Are we praying for the right things,
Mhm.
or because I think sometimes that can be, and I hate to say that we're praying wrong, but maybe we're not understanding what we should be asking for, or understanding even why this situation is happening to us, and maybe the very thing that we're praying to have go away or to be removed from us, maybe God is not responding to that because He doesn't want you to take that away. I don't want to have you come to me and have me pray it out from you. I meant for this to be here, not to
Yeah.
harm you, but to
Good.
grow and develop you. So that's why it needs to stay.
Yeah.
Instead of you praying for it to go away, pray for strength to get through it. Pray for the courage to get through it versus saying, take this away from me. No, I meant for it to be there. Otherwise, I wouldn't have never allowed it to come to you. It's going to actually bless you. It
Yeah.
needs to stay there. You need to marinate in that and work it through. So that's just, I think, for people who might be listening and trying to assess the value of prayer and how that thing works, kind of think about all of the different components from whether it be something that I've said versus as well as what Ron has said, understanding the whole dynamic of it. But same question to you, Robert. When you're faced with that, adversity's knocked on the door today, is sitting on your lap, is staring you in the face, what is the process that you like to go through in handling that thing without it overwhelming and consuming you?
I'm going to build upon what both of you said in terms of the prayer, but I'm going to add to it positioning yourself in different levels of community so God can answer, that He may answer you through very different means. And when I say that, I mean um, being plugged into a church or a small group or a men's group or a women's group or a youth group. Your answer may be in the person sitting next to you. And so if you're not involved in community, you're praying, but that answer, the answer is already in
Yeah.
somebody in the body.
Yeah.
And so
Hmm.
I think that's a real practical way. Go to church. I know that sounds simple, but we're in this culture now where, go to church. There's just some unique things that God does when you're in the physical presence of the body. So I would say that. And then even more so, when you've done those things and it still seems to be difficult, I'm in favor of Christian counseling,
Hmm.
whether that be marriage counseling, whether that be personal counseling. All of these things can supplement your time with God and your spiritual and devotional life. But there's sometimes we get stuck and we need others around us, whether it be friend, family, counselor, church, pastor. So I think community is would be my addition to the prayer.
I like that. I like that. And like you said, that there is value in that community. We talk about that all the time, even in our respective church, when we make our pleas every Sunday about
Hmm.
people coming back to
Hmm.
church. We know that the people are still connected, quote unquote, to the church. They haven't left our physical church or left other physical churches around. But of course,
Hmm.
we think about the impact that COVID had. One of
Hmm.
the disastrous things, aside from taking lives, is that it
Hmm.
got people too comfortable and complacent, not coming into the physical church,
Hmm.
house, to have that physical contact with brothers and sisters in Christ, to be able to love on you, to hug up on you, to chit and chat with you. You can't
Yeah.
do it the same way staring at the computer screen or the television screen, and that being your new way of being relational, because that gets into the distance relationship. And if you've ever been in the long term distant relationship before, those usually don't work out well, because you're too far apart from each other. You don't have that ability to touch, that ability
Yeah.
to connect, that ability to engage and interact. So I love the way you spoke about that, and of course, mentioning that the presence of the counseling. We
Hmm.
particularly in the Black community, and I've said this on other
Hmm.
shows. For many years, therapy was considered to be taboo. We didn't fool with
Hmm.
that kind of stuff, because it
Hmm.
was, when I'm not crazy,
Yeah.
and nothing wrong with me. That's for crazy folks. And even taking it a step further, as believers, you have people who, as believers, are resistant to it because they consider it to be anti-faith. If you need to
Hmm.
get a counselor, you're not exercising faith. If you need to have somebody to, you got to
Hmm.
sit on the couch and talk to somebody, and
Yep.
that's not what it's all about. Because as you said, God has put into people the ability to counsel in a godly way. And I like how you specify. You didn't just say get counseling. You specified in saying Christian counseling.
Absolutely.
Whether it's Christian marriage counseling or some other Christian type of counseling that I need, He's equipped people in the body that
Hmm.
can do the book skill of counseling, but they also add the other book, which is the
Hmm.
word behind it. So, because that counseling is going to be a little bit different than the traditional, I went to school and studied this and, in the books, stuff. I got another layer that's going to
Hmm.
impact the situation a little bit differently in a meaningful and powerful way. So I'm
Hmm.
glad that you brought that up, and we need to embrace that more and not be in this mindset of shutting down again our blessing moment, our blessings in the
Hmm.
streets moment, where you could have gotten that connection. That person was right there next to
Hmm.
you within your
That's
reach,
right.
that could
Yep.
help you talk your way through. You two brothers right here. I mean, everybody doesn't know you, but I know you to know that you are examples of people who are right here who can offer that type of counseling.
Hmm.
So it would be a shame to be that close to my
Right.
answer, but because of my pride or
Wow.
because of my
That's right.
misconception about
Yep.
what I think, counseling is, that's for the crazy folks, and all getting caught up in that hype, that I miss out on the opportunity, and I'm still struggling and I'm still going through when I could be past this,
Hmm.
So that's
Hmm.
good stuff that you shared that. So Ron, I'm gonna throw it back to you. If you had a chance to talk to the younger version of Ron, in his lack of understanding about the world and how it goes around and everything is in it, you gotten your years in, husband, father, walking in faith. You've been through some things, you've seen some and heard some things. You know things a little bit better. If you could pour back into that younger Ron, or just and I know you deal with younger people in general, so this should be right up your alley. What is your message for people who, in the younger versions of our generation? What would you have to say to them that would be of encouragement, and that you believe that would be empowering and in helping them to deal with the adversities and challenges of life? What would be your guidance that you would offer up to them?
Yeah, I think, especially speaking to the younger version of me, would be to really look and get that community. We kind of talked a lot throughout this conversation about the importance of community, whether it be a church, friends, family, and so forth, counsel, wise counsel. But that's something that I would say to the younger version of Ron is to get those group of people that you trust, that are Christians, that are going to hold you accountable to your walk. I think the accountability piece is something that a lot of us, we can agree that that is a challenge for us, and to allow someone into my life that's going to hold me accountable. And that hasn't changed throughout my adult life, but speaking to a younger version of me, I think that's foundational. And I think that would set us all up for success as younger folks, to really look for those people, intentionally look for those people who are going to hold me accountable to doing what I said I'm going to do, and especially walk with Christ. Unfortunately, right now, man, being a Christian, it's not even a thing. It seems like that's not even
Yeah.
one of the options. We have all these other options. So I think it's challenging for the younger folks, because there doesn't seem to be those folks that can do that. And that's why you talked about the mentoring. That's why it's important to have, those other mentors, people who are in the young folks' life, both men and young men and young women. Unfortunately, there's a void in many cases. We're talking 3 out of 4 kids are in single parent homes, so you got to avoid many times a father's not there to give some of that counsel. So you have your friends who end up being the thing that I'm talking about, accountability. Not so much Christian friends, but they have an accountability. So they're going to teach you, they're going to walk with you, they're going to hold you accountable in some ways, but they might not be God's ways. So I
Hmm.
think that's something that I have a heavy heart for, that because I think there's a lot of folks that Christ is not an option, unfortunately.
Mm, mm-hmm.
Exactly, exactly. And I love the fact that you spoke about that accountability piece, especially considering that we live in a day and time now. We didn't have social media around when we were kids. So, now it's all about the likes and the followers, and that kind of thing. But like you said, I know, I understand, and our young people need to understand as well. We got to have people in our circle, as you said, that hold us accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you're not, I can't really call you friend if you know that I'm, just we can use the subject of being married men. If we're out and about and there's a young lady that crosses our path that catches our eye, and the natural fleshly temptation might be to go talk a little something something to her. I need brothers around me to say, Joe, I know she's appealing to you, but come on, bro. We don't want you to do anything, say anything, have a regretting moment where you engage in something that's gonna get you caught up and could destroy your household, versus having the friend who be like, yeah, man, go ahead, and you go ahead and do that, I got your back, your secret's safe with me. I mean, in the flesh, you love that, but in the Christian
Mm-hmm.
walk, it's important that I got brothers who will pull me back and hold me accountable and say, no,
Mm-hmm.
bro, don't do that. That's
Mm-hmm.
not worth your family. You got too much to lose versus the gain that you think you might have in this moment of of pursuit or whatever. But I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just using that as an example. But I mean, it could be all kind of ranges of different challenges that we're faced, temptations that we're faced with to do things that we know are outside of the will of God. It's critical that we have people in that circle, even if it's just a select few. It doesn't even require a massive audience, just a select few of brothers who are going, to our lady listeners, a select group of sisters that's going to have your back, that's going to watch out for you, that you can trust, that you can confide in, that I can be transparent with, no judgment zone, that I know that if I'm outside of your space, that, the minute I leave the room, you're not in there talking about me and dogging me out and smiling in my face when you see me. We need more of that. And unfortunately, in these days and times, we just don't have a lot of that like we used to. So as you spoke to, that mentoring, that understanding of community and connecting yourself with the proper circle, all of those things matter in terms of that accountability and ultimately your walk with Christ. So same question for you, Robert. If you could talk to the younger Robert, things that that you used to struggle with, challenged with. You also, of course, have sons. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's some moments of things that you're trying to pour into them, saying, I don't want you to, certain things I want you to do like I did, and some other stuff I want you to stay clear from. What would be your
Yeah.
message to the younger Robert, or other younger folks, whether they be male or female, that you feel would be of encouragement and needed information that they need to have in order to be able to navigate these waters of adversity?
Man. I would say two things. One, I think Ron touched on it with the accountability and who you're hanging out with, just your crowd, being able to choose friends who have the same worldview, Christian worldview that you do. Um, and I would say they would help you to chase God as hard as you chase girls or boys when you're young. Like that's how hard I want you to chase God. Replace the pseudo dating, married, mock marriages with pursuing God. Um, and the other thing I would say is I would tell him quit wasting your time and your money.
Mm,
Man, I would say take them $20 you're spending a week and put them in a mutual fund and retire at 45. I would definitely uh, tell me to reach out more along the lines of handling my finances with a biblical worldview. Who can I talk to about that? Y'all know, like this whole world now is there are so many apps, and you can go to those different places. But there was a time when this information wasn't readily available. Larry Burkett and Dave Ramsey and other people like that have come along. But I would say to me, um, get a Christ centered view on your money and invest for the future.
Man.
and I love that, and ultimately what you're speaking to is about priorities, getting your priorities
Hmm.
in order, because even with the finances, one of the challenges, and I spoke a little bit about this earlier, is that it's a blessing and it's a curse. We grew up
Hmm.
learning how to be survivors,
Hmm.
but what we didn't oftentimes learn how to do was be investors, be
Mm.
developers, be growers of things. We just were
Hmm.
taught, okay, if you have 5, 10, $15, how do I make that thing stretch to get, make it feel like it was $150 in my hand? We learned, and again, my mom taught me well how to survive. I can master that,
Right.
but what she didn't spend a lot of time, and I don't fault her, it's just what the situations were at that time. But
Yeah.
she didn't teach me about investing
Right.
and saving and all of that. She basically taught me how to be a survivor and a consumer all at the same time. And then by the time the bells finally, rang and the light bulb came on, and by that time, the debt was piled up,
Yep.
and
Yep.
some decisions that had already been made were already in
Yep.
motion, that you couldn't just go give that back. You were
Yep.
in that thing now. And
Right.
so,
Yep.
like you said, there would be some moments in time where I felt like, man, if I could turn back the clock on some of those decisions, I would have played that a little bit different. I would have held off on needing that
Yep.
next new car that I just had to have, or that next new
Yep.
outfit that I just had to have, or
That's right.
that money I needed to spend out in the street that I could have just invested that in the grocery store and fixed it myself instead of giving it to
Yep.
somebody because I was too lazy to do it. All of
Yep.
that kind of stuff. So I totally agree with you. And I think that both of you gave some sound advice to encourage and empower the younger versions of us, because those are the type of things, unfortunately, that when we get that wrong, I mean, life's adversities are going to come at you naturally anyway. The last thing we
Hmm.
want to do is create our own to add on top
Hmm.
of it, stuff that didn't have to happen. We
Yeah.
didn't add it on an already big list of adversity. Okay, let's stack this on. Let me create more of a mess of it. So totally agree with both of you on that. So before I let you brothers go, I do want to give you an opportunity, or I should say, I want to have an opportunity, and the audience to have an opportunity to love on you, to celebrate you, to congratulate you. So if you got anything that's going on right now, any big news, family related, work related, projects, anything of that like that you'd like to share, please let's share that, because again, we want to celebrate the accomplishments and the achievements of life. So I'm gonna jump back to you, Ron. What you got going on, man, that we need to celebrate and love on you about?
Well, nothing to really celebrate on a real high level. I'm actually in the middle of considering a transition to the nonprofit world. Um, and I think the Lord is moving in that direction. So I'll know more later, so I don't want to speak prematurely on that, but that would be something that it looks like it would be the Lord in His preparation throughout my adult life to where He's positioning me, as Robert used the word earlier, positioning me to do a greater work that aligns with the skill set, the talents, the gifts that He's given me. So that's pretty much it. Other than that, I'm just excited about. I got two daughters that are in college, and they're doing pretty well. One's just starting this year, so really excited to see what they're going to do. As far as this life journey in this season for them. So pretty much it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, now I'm going to get on you because you downplayed that, but,
Mm-hmm.
getting your daughters off into college, one just starting,
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely
Mm-hmm.
something to celebrate, especially in these days and times. And then, of course, you got a big opportunity on the horizon. And I know it's not officially finalized just yet, but, this isn't just some random offer. You have an opportunity to lead a nonprofit organization in a major way and do some major works. And like you said, what's even more wonderful about it is that it's in alignment with your gifts. So it
Yeah,
would
Mm-hmm.
be, it's
yeah,
like it's work,
Mm-hmm.
but it ain't work,
That's right.
because it's your calling.
yeah,
It's
Yeah.
what you've been doing, and now God is just opening up an opportunity for you to level it up even more. So
Yeah.
we just gonna speak that victory into the atmosphere right now. That I know you're just waiting on the word, but we just gonna already claim that victory right now, and we're gonna celebrate in advance. This is our pre-celebration of what God is opening up for you and how He's using you accordingly.
thank you.
So same thing for you, Robert. What you got going on? Anything you'd like to share with us? Celebrate? We can acknowledge and love on you about, brother. Tell us what you
Man,
got.
listen, let me tell you why I'm excited right now. I'm sitting on the podcast with my brother, and we went through this cohort called Life on Purpose. And from what I understand, before we went through that cohort, this podcast didn't exist, you know. And my excitement right now is celebrating you for you allowing me, us as a team to come alongside you and just to pour words of encouragement in. And here's the blessing: you did it. You took it, you ran with it, you're doing it. And so, man, the word says I have no greater joy to see, it says my see my children walking in truth. You're not my child, of course, but to see you walking in truth as a result of the work that we've done. When your purpose is fulfilled, my purpose is fulfilled. So, man, brother, I want to celebrate you as I celebrate, because this whole life on purpose was a vision I had about 2 years ago. But to watch the fruit of it now in your life, of course, in Ron's life and the other cohort that we're working with, man, that's bringing life to me.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that, man. Like I said, for those who are listening, Life on Purpose was a ministry that was headed up by brother Triggs, and it was about us tapping into our calling. What exactly is God leading us to do, and the challenge that we walked away with this was to actually, okay, now that we know, let's
Hmm.
apply that thing. Let's actually put it into motion. Because we
Hmm.
can know all we want to know, but if we're not doing anything with it, then what good is it to have the knowledge? And as you stated, for myself, the podcast was not something that was on my plate of point of interest, but it is something that did birth
Hmm.
from that time together that we spent in the session and everything. And and God is just using me accordingly to do this work. And I've never podcasted before. And,
Awesome.
I've been on a few as guests, but I've never done it myself. And so it was a bit, I don't know if I want to say the proper word is scary, or a little intimidating a bit. Like, okay, how do I make this happen? Where do I
Hmm.
begin? And even if I come up with a format, who's going to want to be on the show, and things
Hmm.
like that, are people going to be interested in, and it's just been a blessing every time I do a show. It's been a blessing, and I say that, I share with you at the top of the show, that your stories are going to be, going to bless somebody, but it blesses me as a host,
Hmm.
and I know it's going to bless other people. So yeah, just to see this whole thing come full circle, and I'm just scratching the surface with it. I'm just letting God use me accordingly. And again, my prayer is that people will people will be empowered and encouraged by what we're sharing and what we're discussing and things of that nature. So their lives can be enhanced, that their lives can be
Hmm.
improved. So
Hmm.
it's been a ride, and I'm enjoying it, and to have brothers like you come on board and sharing your stories and your journeys. I mean, it's powerful, and like I said, I don't take it lightly. So thank you
We
both
thank
for
you. Thank you.
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Thank you for all your contributions, for what you do, like I said, in and out of the home and in the community and the church. This world is a better place because of you. And I know that God has his hands on you and he's going to use you accordingly in his way, in his manner, in his timing. And I'm just excited to see more come up out of you. And you brothers, of course, are welcome to be back on the show at any time. Consider you have an open invitation to be back. And when I thought I knew you both, I'm learning another level of you in a good way, and just it just adds another layer of respect and admiration for both of you brothers. So I appreciate you being with us today on the show. It's been an enjoyable pleasure
Thank
having
you.
you. And for those who are checking us out today, listening in on the episode, if you like what you've heard, if you enjoy what the content, what the show format is all about, of course, please subscribe, please like, please comment, please share with others. Because everybody needs to be encouraged, and everybody needs to be uplifted. People are going through their various situations and circumstances. We all need that motivation. We all need that inspiration. And what better way to get it from people who are being transparent and just laying it all out of the line, being authentic, sharing their truth, and letting you know, giving you physical examples that you too can get through your difficult and challenging times. It doesn't have to be the end of your story. It's not the end of the line. It's not the end of the world. God is going to use that thing. He's going to leverage your valley experience and he's going to flip that into something special and unique that specifically was designed for you to impact this world. So, you got to keep on fighting that good fight and doing what you need to do and keeping your eyes, of course, on God as he navigates you accordingly. So remember, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and where your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, be blessed, take care of yourselves, and keep your eyes focused on God because he is the way, the truth, and the life.
Yeah.
Amen, amen, amen. We'll see you next time. Take care of yourselves.
Thanks.